Welcome to ZERT's Information Highway for all you members on the road or on the run. The mission of this podcast is to relay relevant information from training guns and gear to mindset, motivation, and self-preservation from subject matter experts. So sit back, open your mind, crank the volume, and for more information, log on to ZERTnation.com. And a big shout out to our sponsors, Primary Weapon Systems, PWS.
Why does it sound like pole position?
What's going on, ZERT Nation? XP001 here. Welcome to podcast number 2. Sponsored by PWS, Primary Weapon Systems. Don't forget to stop by primaryweapons.com. Now, once again, we have ZERT Instructor, Mr. KG, and we're kind of shooting on what we want to talk about today, and the biggest thing and the always big debate is about CQB, the different elements and missions and rule sets. But one thing that's always kind of left out is leadership within CQB. And the reason why this came up is because ZERT Instructor Mr. X ran a CQB class last week, and he did touch on that subject about that leadership, but we'll talk with him about it as well. But since we have KG here, let's talk about leadership roles within an execution of a takedown of a structure in an urban environment. Like how do you define a real CQB mission or role? Like, is it just taking down of an instructor internally? Is it like?
Well, I think traditionally we've narrowed CQB down to what happens inside of a structure, and that's kind of a myopic look at CQB. There's a lot more to it, whether it's the targeting cycle through the actual planning, and then the ingress to the target area, which is typically external, whether it's through whatever platform, airborne, vehicle, or foot. The actions within the structure, which we know to be CQB, and then the post-assault procedures and the egress from that, based on the types of platforms that I just spoke to. But it's kind of all that. So, like, if you think that just doing CQB is going into a house and flowing through doors and communicating and trying to keep accountability to people, it is that. But there's a lot more to it. I think specifically what people are talking about when you're looking at that thing from the macro, it's a little overwhelming, and it's probably too much for a podcast by any stretch. So I think specifically what people are probably speaking to and what is more appropriate for this venue is, actions inside of a structure.
No, and that's a big thing is every time, we run a CQB class or there's classes out there, it's, primarily regardless if it's maybe advanced CQB or standard CQB, basic fundamentals, CQB skill builder, it's those actions or those fundamentals on basically how do you tackle the interior structure, not exterior. So it's all about, we talk about thresholds, corners, everything else, posing threats, dead space, all that bullshit, but no one talks about the actual planning and getting to the target, on the target, and inside the target, and secure the target, and actually just exfilling, like leaving. Like that's a whole process that I think in a lot of classes are left out, because obviously so to jump off subject, like if you wanted to teach an ideal CQB class to ramp up, let's say a law enforcement department that just started, like what would be the timeline? Like what did you say, hey, I want 90 days, I want a year? Like what would you feel an ideal timeline to actually teach an entire package from planning, execution?
Well, I think that in an environment where you can pull people from different areas in a actual schoolhouse structured environment with all the facilities and all that, I mean, traditionally it could be anywhere from a smallest package being 4 to 6 weeks up to 8 weeks, and then ultimately up to a year. I mean, there's no real time limit. It depends on how far you want to go, more specifically the size of the element and the size of the operations you want to conduct, right?
Sure.
So law enforcement agencies, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on law enforcement agencies, or their operations, but I would say that footprint is much smaller than, say, some of the larger military organizations that exist within the USG. And that's, again, we talked about in the beginning, it's pretty big, right? Like, so it's normally broken up into pieces and it's phased out. But I think most of the time when you're dealing with students going through a course and through the training venue or the apparatus that you're using, there's constraints involved. So we focus a lot more on the final kind of approach to the target, the internal or assault, and then the post assault, and then the exfil. I think is kind of the meat and potatoes of the assault leadership piece that you can teach within a reasonable amount of time with limited resources. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you can't. It's pretty tough to go full spectrum, company level assault force or so. Whatever it is, you're looking for. I think so. That's why most people within that time frame just do the kind of the initial, during, post, and exfil type thing.
Okay. Now let's say that we schedule a ZERT CQB course and we get pushback because it's a tactics course and it pertains to no shooting, and they're arguing that they feel shooting should be involved, which we know is not. But how would you define that or explain that of teaching a CQB class without actual firing a shot?
Well, I guess what some people say would be like, well, you may do a dozen plus hits and not ever shoot a shot. I mean, I guess that is true to a certain degree. However, you are trying to teach people to do the worst case scenario to a certain extent, or a more probable threat scenario. The reality is, though, if you don't know how to communicate, maybe we always say shoot, move, communicate, but there's a lot more communication. It really should go like communication, movement, and then somewhere way down the line there's shoot, right? Like, I mean, that's the reality of it. However, you need to train the shooting too. That being said, for you to get a realistic training environment to actually go in and understand what you're doing, there's much more emphasis on the shooting and moving. The moving and communicating. Sorry. You have to be able to communicate and you have to be able to move. I mean, that's the meat and potatoes of it. And what we do a lot of times, we say, hey, we're going to shoot, move, and communicate. We're going to do CQB. We're going to go into a structure and we accelerate that timeline. We accelerate the target set. And what we really do is a disservice, I think, in my opinion, to people. In the military, you have a common operating picture. You have kind of a baseline ish, I would say, of people and where they're at. So you can probably cut back some of that stuff to a certain degree. But when you're bringing folks in from all walks of life, it's a little bit tougher to say, hey, we're just going to jump right into this thing. You really have to understand the meat and potatoes of it, which is the communications primarily and the movement. And the shooting, it is important, obviously. It is the most dynamic and most threatening portion of it. But without those other two, it just doesn't. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter. It's hard to say. It does matter. But backwards, look at it backwards plan off of the actual contact. Like, what is required? What no shit has to happen before you can even get into a position to shoot? There's a whole lot of communication, and there's some movement, and probably some more communication, and then some more communication till you get there. So until you've refined that, or until you really understand that, you're almost doing yourself a disservice to shoot. The shooting is fun, the shooting is sexy, and it is an important component. But if you can't do the other two prior to that engagement, then you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Okay. And like, we hear it, and that's a big thing that we always talk about. Like, hey, regardless of the instructor of the class you're looking at, we always talk about vet the instructor, to understand what you're getting into. But like guys saying like, I'm a CQB expert, or I specialize in CQB, or I'm a tactics instructor. Like, what is that to you? Like.
Well, if they said it in that voice, I'm fucking just slapping in the chops.
I'm a CQB instructor.
I mean, I don't know. You don't want to discredit anybody. I'm not in the business of sharpshooting, or well, that's not true. I kind of, but like, I'm not in the business of bad mouthing anybody for sure. I'm definitely not in the business of tearing anybody down or attacking anybody. And it's a case-by-case basis. I don't know, is there a requisite training? Is there a requisite number of real world assaults that you must do. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that means. Obviously, the more the better, right? Like I would assume, but I don't think you should get so wrapped around the axle in that. The guy has an experience in SOF or law enforcement or law enforcement special operations. And why I lean on that more, not to take anything away from a beat cop by any stretch, he's probably day to day in more danger than any soft guy or any SWAT guy on a day to day basis. There's no doubt about it. But as it pertains to actually taking down structures, the command and control, the risk mitigation, all that sort of stuff, you really need somebody that has a background, who's been institutionally trained, and has the experience-based knowledge to put out a product that's feasible, that's realistic, and that's going to give you the best chance of survival if that is your job or your mission. I would say that if you're just a guy that likes to shoot and have a good time and he wants to come out and learn some CQB, it still matters. I mean, you still want to train with a guy that's teaching you something that's good, right? Like you don't want to go out there and train with a guy that's like, well, I was and again, I'm not picking on anybody, but I was a this or that for 3-4 years, and then I got out and I did a this or that for a year. Just size it up. Look at his pedigree, research him, do his little open source. You Googleize him. And then look at other training venues. Look at where you're spending your money and the proximity to your location that you want to do the training. And there may be another venue out there. The more experience, the better. But it doesn't mean they're necessarily a good instructor. It definitely doesn't mean that they've seen it all or done it all. And to date, I don't know that there anybody that has, myself or anybody else included. Yeah.
But I mean, with that being said, how many CQB type missions have you done over the last 20 years?
I don't know. Do people keep track of that stuff?
I
don't know.
Some guys maybe measure their dicks one way or another, but like,
I don't know. A mess. I mean, that's tough. I mean, some rotations you just don't do much. Yeah. Some you do a whole bunch. I don't know. I've seen guys online. They're like, I've got 150 missions, and I'm like, okay, well, cool, man. Like, but I would say that being in whatever theater it is, the exposure to whatever element or task force it is, when you look at the actual, the term body count sounds corny, but you look at that. Well, when someone says they've done X number of hits, and you look at actually what the engagement ratio is to that, it's just not that high. I mean, okay, so you got 100 hits, but how many people were engaged? And of that element, were you the guy that was directly engaged in it? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, just because you've been on a ton of hits doesn't mean you're a guy directly engaged in it, and that's not to take anything away from that guy, not even a little bit. Like the minute you go into planning and you get on some sort of aircraft or vehicle, it's a risk. It's a huge risk. You go into the structure fully knowing that may be a dangerous environment, or could be the end of your days. I'm not taking anything away from that, but like the number of hits, I don't know that that's necessarily that important. Because some rotations there could be a ton of hits and nobody shoots a shot. That's the reality of it. Okay. And there's some that you go on that one hit and it's everything you could ever not want, probably, in a situation on one target. So don't get wrapped around the axle. I would look at a larger experience base and just weigh it out, man. I don't know what an expert looks like in this field. I mean, I hate to say that. I really don't know what an expert looks like if it's based on the criteria of number of hits. It's just, I guess the takeaway from this is the preponderance of the stuff that you're going to do is planning, movement, communication, and then execution. The shooting portion is fairly low over a long period of time. So like I said, sometimes there's those trips where there's a whole ton of shooting, or those missions where there's a whole ton of shooting. I'm just saying that I think if you say that you've got 150 hits, I would be interested to see how many times on each one of those hits you were directly engaged in close quarters engagement that involved you firing your weapon. Some people it's a lot, for sure. The bulk of the force, I would argue that is not the case.
All right. It's a good tip. So, hey guys, once again, thanks for tuning in to our second podcast. and just trying to take advantage as much as possible with Z.E.R.T instructor Mr. KG. As you know, he's taught far and few classes due to his deployment schedule. But the thing is that if you do see a course pop up with his name, make sure you take advantage of it. As modest as he is, I consider him that he is a very experienced.
He's searching for the words. That's dangerous if he's searching for the words.
I just don't want to, trying to be.
Don't want to church it up.
Well, standing politically correct. But hey, guys, you know the deal. You guys that train with him, the knowledge that he possesses and his ability to relay the information for you to retain it and apply it effectively, and no fluff. So thanks once again. Don't forget to stop by ZERTNation.com, click on our training and events, and of course, check out primaryweapons.com, our sponsors, PWS. So I'm XP001, and
I can't really mean it. KG.
We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. What's going on, Z.E.R.T Nation? It's XP001 here. Welcome to our first Z.E.R.T broadcast, brought to you by Primary Weapon Systems, PWS, one of our big sponsors for Z.E.R.T training. Don't forget to stop by primaryweapons.com. PWS is now one of the key sponsors for Z.E.R.T training, meaning that as of starting of 2017, every member that attends Z.E.R.T training will receive a $50 gift coupon for primaryweapons.com. So big shout out to our sponsors. Now, we're here for Shotshow. It's our first podcast. We have a very unique moment. We have Z.E.R.T instructor Mr. KG that we're going to talk with today about various little topics. So few of you have had the opportunity to be on the range with KG, so he's always in and out and about. So any opportunity that we do get to get him on the roster to teach a class, if you see it on there, take advantage of it. You won't be disappointed. So basically right now, I'm going to turn it over to instructor KG.
Hey, how's it going, Z.E.R.T Nation? KG here for you guys that don't know me. I'm an Army dude by nature. Spent about a little over 20 years now in the U.S. Army and Special Forces between a couple different organizations. Currently trying to take on a somewhat retired posture, whatever that means, in the near future. I'm going to sit here and go over some questions that XP001 has for me and try and identify or answer some questions or ideas that maybe you guys have sent to him or that he has in his mind that he would like me to cover. So turn it back over to him.
All right. So the big thing is really breaking down who are our Z.E.R.T instructors and why do they do it? Bottom line.
Well, I think it's a good question. It's important to know your cadre and your instructors. I mean, you're paying your hard-earned money to come out and receive some quality training. And I'd be remiss if I tried to speak for everybody, so I won't. But what I will say is that, from the different companies that I've worked for and organizations that I've worked for and with, that Z.E.R.T has an incredible pool of instructors with a robust background. I would put them against, I guess what you would call more established training companies, being that Z.E.R.T has obviously much more than training going on. But
why would they want to be associated with something called Zombie Eradication Response Team? Literally.
Well, I mean, I've known you for a long time. I think a lot of these guys, there's a personal piece to it where we feel comfortable working with XP001, and there's not a lot of hype and glamour about it. I think there's a lot of guys that just want to get out there and train with folks and teach them something that's not a brand or a gimmick. I don't think you're going to get a Z.E.R.T brand of anything. I think you're going to get individual aspects on training tactics, techniques, and procedures that are experience-based, both institutional experience-based, but they don't belong to Z.E.R.T or belong specifically to that instructor. I wouldn't say that we're held to any any sort of specific doctrine through ZERT, and that's important. We're not selling so much the brand on the training as we're selling real world, institutional, and experience based knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, which I always touch on is, guys will go, hey, should I take the same class twice? Well, it depends on who's teaching it, right? Different backgrounds, different experiences, different SOPs or operating procedures, and they may relay the information differently, right?
Well, absolutely. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, everybody's obviously coming from one of the tribes, the soft tribes, or some sort of governmental agency that is soft specific in nature, and that you are going to get between the same course ran twice between two instructors, you may get a little bit of different techniques, but it's all going to be principally based. As it pertains to a technique, I can't imagine any of the instructors that I've worked with within ZERT teaching something that was so wazoo that it wasn't principally based. And I think that's what you need to stick with whenever you look at something. Is this principally based? This isn't just something that I'm not going to air out any mainstream instructors or anything like that. But you see a lot of techniques out there, and that's good. But you should always look back and go, okay, so what is this principally based upon? And everybody that I've worked with in the ZERT instructor community is a very solidly principle based instructor and operator.
Okay, and as far as our majority, I mean, we have a pretty diverse background of cadre, but most of them come with a similar background as yourself, and you've known them. We've all vetted and known each other. It's kind of like the 6 degrees of Seven Bacon, right? Or Kevin Bacon.
Seven Bacon's even better.
Bacon. Too much sauce.
That's my gang name, by the way. Seven Bacon.
Seven Bacon. But no, and I think there's something to be said about guys with that come from your background, why they're so appealing from the instructor standpoint.
Well, I think you get guys that are used to working outside the box, and there's a certain amount of flexibility that you get with a ZERT instructor. That's I'm not saying that's not for other companies. I'm just saying specifically within ZERT, I think that we have flexible training, flexible venues. You're going to see things and get to do things that you may not within the constraints of safety and real world application. There's some stuff you're not going to see. I mean, all of us have been exposed to some tactics, techniques, and procedures that we're just not willing to share, or that we're allowed to share, but we can extrapolate from that and give you something that's as close as possible to that based on the principle that it was founded on. And a lot of people, and again, I'm not trying to by any stretch to badmouth anybody, I'm just speaking in general terms. A lot of times people are just regurgitating things that they got from other courses. And I think with a lot of the ZERT instructors that have such a robust, knowledge of the subject matter, I think they're able to, like I said, extrapolate that information and tailor it to you guys in a way that you're getting the benefits of it without exposing anything that's sensitive in nature.
Anything out there that you would say to the naysayers, the guys that just don't understand why we use, color code names or nicknames, etc.?
Why we do?
Yeah.
Oh, look, man, a lot of the guys are still working. I'm still working at, like I said earlier, I'm getting ready to retire. It's not important. The name isn't important. Look, spend the money, come out, do some training, and see what you think. We've trained with a bunch of guys already, whether they were law enforcement or military guys, that thought that they were just coming on board with something that was going to be something they'd already seen before, more of the same. And what I would say is that couldn't be further from the truth, and that all those things that I cited earlier about the flexibility and all that sort of stuff, again, we're not here to sell a brand. We're not here to sell a can I cuss on this thing?
Yeah.
Can I cuss?
Yeah.
Study some sort of catch me, fuck me technique, some doodad that, somebody's out there teaching. I don't know any other way to put it other than that I'm vouching for the guys that work for this organization. If you don't like the marketing model or whatever, that's fine. You don't have to. I'm just saying.
Good point.
Come out to the range, see what's going on, figure it out.
Prove us wrong.
I'm all about it. You wanna call bullshit on me? I'm game for it anytime. Definitely not trying to go down the tough guy road. I'm just being honest with you. Um, if they don't like the marketing model, then that's okay, man. Like, I don't know what anybody has to prove. If I'm out here doing it with the rest of these guys, and after the time that they've spent and doing the jobs that they've done, I'm not sure why you would want to blast it. I would just say, hey, throw a couple bucks down, bang for your buck. I mean, I'm not trying to talk money or any of that sort of stuff. I'm just saying that bang for your buck compared to some of the other courses you're going to get. I mean, I look at these things all day long. You're not going to get a stronger cadre or pool of instructors for your money that are willing to teach the things or have the knowledge base or experience to teach you things as close to reality as possible as you're going to find with Z.E.R.T. And that's just kind of how it is.
And it's a good point because, like, when I first started, we were running a course down in Arizona, and the guy's probably listening to this right now. He took the course, and it was at Scottsdale Gun Club. Small, it was a 6 or 8 hour clinic. It was our NSW, Naval Special Warfare shooting package that we had. And after the course, he came up to me. He's like, well, actually, after the course, we had our AAR back in the classroom. And he raised his hand. He's like, I owe you an apology. I'm like, for what? He goes, I came to this class to take it and bash you on ARFCOM because I thought we were training for zombies and shooting zombie targets. And after being through this course, like, I realized it was legit. The drills were legit. The curriculum. He's like, I feel my skill set's improved. So I just wanted to openly say that in front of everyone here that I apologize. And I was like, holy shit, man. Like, so like someone actually would pay that and just to have content to put on the forum. Back then social media was just, growing, but that's happened repeatedly. A lot of dudes, come up because they, want to see what we're about or don't know what we're about, but they say the same thing at the end, man. Hey, it was great stuff. I learned something new. The training's legit. And, that's the big thing, guys. If you're listening to this and you're still skeptical, get on ZERTnation.com, get on YouTube, get on fucking Facebook, watch our videos, see what we're about. We're just using this as a fun tool to relay this information to like-minded individuals, to the average Joe. I'm not going after the fucking 5,000 super high-speed guys that fucking know it all, which they should know that they were there at one point too. We all were, right? Like, we all started fucking somewhere, man. Like, get off your fucking high horse because we're even with 20 years ago, you're at where that dude's coming in right now, so why fucking bash him,
Well, I think too that you come out to any training venue, and I don't know anybody who's so good that can't come out to the range and do whatever training's being prescribed. I mean, it may not be exactly what you're looking for in particular, I guess in some cases, but like God, I mean, we've talked about in the past, like zeroing your rifle. It's amazing how many times I go out on the range with whomever, and guys don't have their rifles zeroed, and they don't know what their holdovers or hold unders are at certain ranges with their primary weapon systems and kind of kit setup and all these little things that a wise guy, I don't think I made it up by any stretch, but I think a much wiser guy than I did said, don't grade your own homework, right? So like, you go out on the range and you're like, shit, man, I had a great day on the range. I crushed it. And you're like, maybe did, but maybe didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe your marksmanship was good, but there was a bunch of procedural stuff or weapons handling, stuff that was wrong. Or it's like going to the gym, and if you don't keep track of your stuff at the gym, you're like, I had a great day today. Well, did you? Compare it to your last workout or the one before that. Like, did you have a good day? So when guys,
measure, right?
Yeah, so when guys come out and they're like, well, I wanted this, wanted that. Like, that's cool, but like, again, going back to the bang for your buck, man, you're not going to go wrong with coming out to the range. Any day on the range is a good day, and then to have somebody else kind of come through and externally kind of critique you and talk about the finer points or refine some of your TTPs is never a bad day. And I agree 100% with Aaron, and that guys that they want to shoot this down, and I'll be the first to tell you I don't know how to kill a zombie. I mean, I get it, like I've seen the movies too, but what I can teach you how to do is to reduce a threat through whether that's close quarters battle or it's just refining the basics on the flat range, and trying to help you tailor that to your specific needs. I mean, we could show up to a range and we could have former soft guys, former military guys, current military. We could have all these guys out on the range, and we can't. No course on the face of the planet can tailor one curriculum to every participant there. You have a course of instruction you're going to teach, and they get in where they fit in. But I think we do that in a manner and with enough time and instructors to tailor the technique to you. If you pull us off to the side and we talk about, or during breaks we talk about, like, hey, this is my mission set, or this is what my perceived threat is, this is what I'm looking at, and say, well, that last drill we did, or and I try and articulate that before every drill through instruction and demonstration if time permits, and hopefully we get that out to the guys. A lot of times it just you might have that question, pull me off to the side. I think what's the last class I did is,
well, I want to bring that up because we did Colorado. So we went out and did, Colorado was a 2 day?
2 day.
2 day? Yeah. Was it? I can't remember, man. No, it was a 2 days. So we spent the night.
Yeah, we stayed the night in the hotel.
Yeah. So
and you got a little handsy with me, but
hey, that's how it works. But hey, man, the big thing that I want most members to take away is understand their capabilities or their shortfalling. So that second day, I think we had 20 plus dudes on the line, and we had them shoot a slow fire bullseye drill from 50, right?
Yep.
And it was pretty bad. And the key thing is, we're not there to go, haha. It was a realization. These guys go, and we did that, the 25 meter slow fire, 25 meter aggregate with a handgun.
Well, we had to re-zero those guys before we even started training day one, and go back over it. And I think, what I was trying to push, and I think you echoed it, or maybe you said it and I echoed it, was that this is where you're at right now. Shooting is an absolutely objective thing. There's no subjectivity to it. You can have excuses, you can say what you want, but you're going to punch holes through paper, and those bullets go where that machine that you're holding, puts them. There's no I guess subjectivity is the best word I can think of. There's no subjectivity. It's that is what it is, which I hate that expression. It is what it is, but that is what it is at that moment. So even if you have a bad day, you have a good day, you have whatever kind of day you have, that is where you're at right that moment. And I'm going to make you own that. And it's not to be mean or whatever. Like, I have good days, I have bad days, but that is where you're at right that second. If you encountered a threat that day on that range that wasn't a fucking E-type silhouette or a piece of paper, that was what you were capable of. And you should make note of that. Yeah. Good, bad, right, wrong, and different. That is where you're at. And it's, if it needs improvement, and I would almost every time say that it needs improvement. I don't care how good you are. You can always get faster, more accurate, more fundamentally correct in your procedurals. But that's the sort of thing that we're trying to get after. I'm not just going to line you up there and be like, do this drill because KG said so. Challenge me. Well, what about this, vice that? What about, if I want to do, what about that? And understand there's only so much time on the range to do so many tasks with so many people. I'll try and field those questions, but I would also say that most of the curriculum or most of the drills are designed around answering multiple questions versus just something super static for a certain requirement. Does that make sense? That's a lot of words.
Yeah, no. And I think when we shot that, and I just done this at the executive protection pistol course in California, was I made him, hey, you got 30 seconds to fire 10 rounds from the compressed ready into I think it's a 10-inch bull. 10-inch bull, which, is, it's not easy. So after those guys, they had 30 seconds, slow fire, all the time in the world. They go up there, and it looks like shotgun patterns on all their targets. And they're just like, oh, man, I suck, blah, blah. It's like, no, now you know your limitations. That's 25 yards. Yeah. If you're in a mall, a parking lot, know your limitations, be accountable for every round you throw down range. But now we know what we need to work on. We know what we need to focus on. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's easy as instructors to, you show up on the range with your pedigree or whatever, and you're the expert. But the reality is, if you're on that range, you're not with the assault force training, right? So that means the other, 90% of my life is spent carrying a gun in public, doing what I consider to be due diligence as a guy that's qualified to carry a pistol and employ it safely. is tailor that training to you at that time. And what I mean by that is not just the drill, but what is your environment? I kind of hit this earlier. You know, when do you feel like you're going to use that, or when do you perceive that you may be using that training? And know that that's where you're at, man. Like a lot of people would say, I saw a guy in a mall, I'm out there with my family, my kids, and he's some sort of threatening action, or he has a weapon or whatever. I would do this. Well, okay, no, I agree. I'm not judging whether you should or shouldn't do it, or why you're doing it, but what are you capable of doing at that point, right? And I think that's important for us to do. A lot of times we go out on the range and we do a lot of close quarters marksmanship, for example. The range doesn't go much past 25 meters typically. It's pretty easy to engage those targets and with relative accuracy. But the reality is, is that really the case? Is it always going to be within 25 meters? Is it under no stress? I mean, a pro timer is stress, I guess, but is it really stress? Is it dark? Is limited visibility? There's the real threat of life or death. You have other people in the environment that you're accountable for, maybe not just your family, but other people in the area. I mean, what can you really do if you have to do that? Because the reality is we're not in an assault force. We don't travel around an assault force every day. Even guys that are on an assault force don't travel around an assault force every day. They have real lives, right? And that, to me, is almost borders on more important, right? Because if you have a job, it is important. But also day to day, traveling with your family, traveling by yourself. If you're carrying a gun concealed, like you have a responsibility to the public as a citizen, an armed citizen, to do the right thing and not harm people. So that's what I talk about when I'm saying, hey, where are you at right now? It's not because I think you're going to go into into Mosul or Coast or one of these places, start getting into a gunfight. I'm saying, like, day to day, when you strap that pistol on and you walk out the door, are you the right guy for the job?
Knowing your capabilities, I think that's a huge thing. Is guys have this misconception. It's like, oh, if that shit goes down, it's going to happen. I really think that I'm a efficient shooter, but the fact is, if I don't do it for a long time and I go out, and when I do go out, I shoot cold the 25-meter aggregate to see where I'm at. And every time I need to improve on it, regardless. I've been shooting for, over a decade, but it doesn't matter if it's combative shooting. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to them around you to hone those skills, keep them fresh, because the key thing is that's why we have the now drill, is what you can do right now. Cold, not after a great day on the range, a bunch of dry fire. Like, what can you do right now?
Well, I think that too, when you go through any one of these marksmanship courses or sniper course, whether SOTIC/CIFSIC or whatever course you go to at sniper, like, your cold bore shot is it. You got to know that cold bore. You have to, because there's no time in a threatening environment or combat environment to get a practice shot. Excuse me. It just doesn't exist. You line up on that thing and you shoot. And that's just, I'm using snipers as an extreme example, but even with your rifle, your pistol, whatever it is, like when it goes down, it's not like, hey, let me get warm real quick. It just doesn't, that doesn't happen. And then actually take that to, hey, say your pistol is under 2 layers of clothes. You're walking through the mall with family. You're thinking about, going to get an Orange Julius or what, I don't know.
Shopping at that sale at the Gap.
I mean, that's weird, but I wouldn't do that.
Old
but
Navy. I'm sorry.
I'm an Old Navy man myself, but no, I'm just saying, like, that is where you're at. That's pulling that pistol, skinning it, and bringing it up, lining up your sights, and putting a well-placed shot on a known threat, and reducing it is really all of it. That first shot out of the holster is kind of all of it. And are you prepared to do that, and to what degree and under what circumstances? So it's tough.
No, and that whole thing is, when you say, are you prepared to do that? I think that's a big factor that people that carry, they have to come to terms with that will to kill. Not like the will to go out and fucking kill someone, but like have that understanding that, are they going to be down on that point to do it and live with the repercussions of a clean shoot? It's a clean shoot. They're still going to have to live with taking someone's life, or do they have that? Especially women too. A lot of men too, but women's like, I'm carrying a gun for my safety, but like, do you really have that intent to pull the trigger?
Well, and I would add that when is there, when's the right time to not pull the pistol? Just because a gun is out, You know, there are other circumstances involved in that situation. Like how early do you expose yourself? Because if good guy, bad guy, whatever, you know, you're scanning an audience of people and you see a gun come out, all of a sudden that focuses on you. Maybe you're not in the position to engage that person. Maybe it's moving your family and your safety, or your family and your kids or whatever, to a safe place, and then you maneuvering on that individual, you know, and it's hard because there's no way to sit back unless you analyze all these shootings and you know, we all fall victim in our mind that how it's going to go down, but the reality is you have no idea how or when it's going to go down, because the act in and of itself to go into some place and engage people, innocent people, is insanity. So to get in that frame of mind is near impossible anyway. So what you kind of have to do is be ready for all of that. But in doing that, we kind of have to go through multiple scenarios of when I should pull my gun, when I shouldn't pull my gun. You know, is it a maneuver and fire? Is it a fire and maneuver? Should I close the distance? Should I, you know, I mean, it's a difficult situation, I would assume. I haven't, last time I checked, gone into a mall and gotten into a shootout with ISIS or whomever. I'm just speaking from other experience how I would apply that to a peacetime scenario in a civilian populace. It's tough. So all you can really do is get on the range and refine and hone all the basics down to a point where it's muscle memory. For lack of a better, I know muscle memory. I don't want to get into that term, but
No,
but through repetition, through good repetition, that, you know, we employ our weapon systems in a safe manner, and ultimately we owe that to the citizens around us if we are carrying. It's just not good enough to put your what's that, the Molan Labby thingy, whatever the hell it is, put it on the back of your truck, and then you throw your pistol in there, and you're like, I'm here to fucking fix the world. Well, no, it's not that. It's you knowing when, where, how, and why you're engaging a threat that is, you know, ultimately damaging to you, your family, or the populace.
No, that's a good point, and that's the biggest thing that I always harp on. I repeatedly say that you need to train to be able to run that gun at a basic level, at a subconscious level, so you can concentrate on the task at hand, which may be tactics, maybe that shot, maybe getting that angle, and that goes with, you know, combatives, because we always talk about, you know, when you first start driving a car, right? You're all nervous. You're 10 and 2. Your blinkers, your head's on a swivel because it's not a comforting thing because it's new to you. Now, 20, 30 years later of driving, guess what? It's subconscious. You can talk on the phone. You can put your makeup on. You can eat, text, slap your kids, do whatever, because you've done it so much. It's at a subconscious level, so you can kind of focus on other things. Shooting is no different, right? Because you can't, you know, the biggest thing, and we'll get into CQB here in a second, but the biggest thing right now is guys will be like, oh, like there's no shooting the CQB course. I'm like, look, man, if you can't manipulate and navigate that muzzle in a safe direction at a subconscious level, that CQB class is going to be fucking irrelevant, because it's going to be information overload, because you can't just be focusing on safety on, off, muzzle direction, right? When you're approaching a threshold, where at your corners, your points of dominations, opposing threat, dead space, you know, communication, verbal, nonverbal, etc.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a million things going on inside your mind, and that's without any of the fear. And, you know, a lot of people would argue, and I would argue as well, that the closest thing you can get to really doing it is through competition, meaning that there are rules applied, there's a timer applied, and then there's the nature that you're competing against somebody. So I'm not trying to sell going out and doing IPSC, idpa, whatever your thing is. I'm just saying that if you really, and this ties back obviously into grading your own homework, if you really want to apply yourself and know how well you're doing, it's engage in these competitions. And don't really worry about if you're going to win, or you're trying to get your grandmaster, whatever your thing that your goal is. The real goal ultimately, if you're a concealed carry guy or a law enforcement guy, open carry, whatever it is that you're being graded by somebody, and you're put under some sort of stress, pressure, to employ what you consider to be refined fundamentals, right? So, tying back into what Aaron's saying is that all those fundamentals, all that stuff that we do, which some people use as muscle memory or whatever, really comes through practice. And then the application, because you don't just go into the mall looking for a gunfight, is that you go out to competition, or you train with other people and have them look at you. And put on your thick skin and say, hey man, how'd I do? And when they say you look like a bag of smashed assholes, don't get all butthurt or whatever. It's not, you step back and you say, okay, well, what did I do wrong? And if they're full of shit, maybe they are. But at least it's somebody saying, hey man, this is what I saw. And if you hear it more than a couple times, it's probably true, right? Yeah. Like, if you go out every day and you say, God, everyone I ran into was an asshole. Well, just chances are you're the asshole. So listen to what people say. Take it with a grain of salt, but also if you hear it more than a few times, it may be something you need to work on. And if it's on the pro timer and it's in your accuracy, I mean, you can't really argue that, right? Like, I mean, that's objective. That's what it is, man. The time was the time. The holes were the holes, and that's just how it is. And
pro timer doesn't lie.
You can love it or hate it. Shut
he
up.
hates that saying. He hates it. That's what I say. But it's true. The pro timer doesn't lie.
But it's true. No, there's absolute truth to that. And but that's the reality of it, man. Is that you have to go up against something, whether it's a timer, whether it's accuracy, hopefully a combination of both, or having an external greater judge that's running a pro timer and looking at your accuracy and making you own it, and that's kind of, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That's the closest you're going to get, aside from going out there and, getting into gunfights, which I don't advocate. I'm just throwing out there. I don't know who would do that, but maybe someone. But I don't know. That's
it. So hey guys, just want to thank you guys for tuning in to our first podcast brought to you by Primary Weapon Systems, PWS. Don't forget to stop by primaryweapons.com.
The ZERT membership pack is your gateway to a worldwide organization dedicated to building a safe and trained community armed with the proper mindset to see you and your family through to safety. The first-year membership pack includes ZERT 702 black t-shirt, 5-inch ZERT 702 patch in PVC, your call sign and squadron assignment, ZERT membership certificate, official membership card with your call sign, 10 ZERT recruitment cards, access to discounts from ZERT approved vendors, 15% off most ZERT merchandise year-round. In addition to the membership pack, once you join, you receive the following privileges: access to the ZERT forum and exclusive online videos, access to training events and special forces instructors, training cost is additional, members-only newsletter, admittance to over 90 private squadron and state Facebook groups, attend members-only events, participate in contests and giveaways. Join us today and get started meeting the members in your area. Privileges are just that and can be revoked at any time. Management reserves all rights. Facebook rules and regulations apply. ZERT, not just an organization, it's a lifestyle. ZERTNation.com.